It's time to move into the class project section of the course. You're going to want to start by opening Adobe Photoshop. At the time of this recording, I'm working in the Creative Cloud version 2019. It's late December 2018, so if you've done an update recently, this is the same version you're working with. In this chapter, we'll prepare our Photoshop file, review some tools, and their shortcuts. Let's start by opening a new document. I am going to work in a specific format that's set up for my Skillshare class. So I'm using 1920 by 1080 HD, 300 pixels per inch. 1920 by 1080 is resolution with a 16:9 aspect ratio. It's equivalent to HD TV formats. You can use the same format as me, or you could revise your ratio, but I recommend keeping the pixels per inch at least 300 for print quality. Before we get into tools, let me describe how I'm sitting at my workspace. I have my drawing tablet set up right in front of me. It's a second monitor connected to my iMac. I'm right-handed, so I keep my keyboard just to the left within a comfortable reach of my left hand because there's keyboard shortcuts I'm constantly using while I'm drawing with my right. The first step of our process will be to do a quick sketch to be inked and then later colored. So I'm going to switch to a pencil tool. I'm most comfortable with a non-photo blue pencil. You could sketch with the usual gray or black graphite, but I like the blue because there's a nice contrast between the blue and the black of my final line work. I'm using Kyle T. Webster's art brushes. You could really use any default brushes. In fact, I think a lot of Kyle's are now built into the Creative Cloud. So when you download Photoshop, you're probably getting Kyle Webster's set of inking, drawing, painting brushes. If you want to browse the Kyle Webster brushes, you can go to the Get More Brushes menu and download other sets. While I'm sketching and inking, there's a few basic keyboard shortcuts I keep on hand to streamline my process. One is the B key, which is the brush shortcut on the keyboard. The E key is the shortcut for the eraser tool. You can toggle back and forth easily between the B and the E. I would suggest not obsessing over erasing. Erasing switches gears in my creative process while I'm drawing, so I'd suggest avoiding the eraser as much as possible. I also find it really helpful to be able to adjust the brush size as I work. The left bracket key on your keyboard will shrink your brush size, and the right bracket key will scale up your brush size. Another shortcut that's going to help us, especially when we get into color, is to hold down the Alt or Option key on our keyboard. This switches your pointer to the color sampler if you need to make a quick change to your brush color. Select your brush tool and look up at the active toolbar. You'll see a slider labeled Smoothing. This feature helps you smooth out any jitters in your line as you draw. In the slider, you can enter a value from 1 to 100. The higher value means more smoothing applied to your gesture. The settings of the smoothing tool right now are set to default. So if you open up that little gear menu, you'll see you have stroke catch-up and adjust for zoom. Stroke catch-up means the line will continue to complete its path even after you stop drawing. You'll probably want to keep this on. Adjust for zoom will turn down your smoothing as you zoom in on your artwork. This will preserve the overall gesture of your line art. I definitely recommend keeping this on. The other settings under the gear are a topic for another class, but there's a lot of potential in them, and if you want to explore that further, I recommend Googling brush stroke smoothing in Photoshop CC to learn more. Smoothing can be a little distracting, so while you're sketching, you probably want it set pretty low. You can adjust smoothing on the fly with a keyboard shortcut. Hold the Option or Alt key and press a numeric key. So holding Option and pressing the 1 key will set your smoothing to 10%. Option and the 2 key will set your smoothing to 20%, and so on. Okay, those are the basic tools and shortcuts that will help us sketch and ink our illustration. Now let's talk about finding inspiration for that first sketch.